The
Transition's blinking. There you go.
Yay! Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another bubbly, bouncy edition of the Inworld Review, where it is the 30th of March, and talking about bubbling and bouncing, that seemed to be what was happening in Livestream Studio just before we went live. So do forgive us for that sort of stop routine. Anyway, we are here now, and this is the show where we chat about all sorts of things, immersive spaces, the hypergrid, virtual reality, all broadcast live from our studios here in Chilwell in Second Life, and brought to you in association these days with AView TV. Now, for those of you who are watching us live and hopefully have been tuned to the Metaverse Week in Review for the last 90 minutes or so, we did actually put the Week in Review show live early this week so that we could replay a clip which was a meetup clip from a group called the Silicon Valley Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Group. There, I've got it right. And they have their little meetings every month or two. And the latest one that we just replayed was quite literally 2 days ago. And it was fortuitous in many ways because the main news of the week, which I'm about to reveal, of course, as if you don't know already, had already come to light. So it was very current what we were seeing. And the highlight, of course, was the last hour or so was Philip Rosedale demonstrating a lot of stuff to do with his new startup, High Fidelity, which received some pretty enormous backing this week, amongst other things. And I've just been laughing my head off with the sort of a very cartoony Philip with a beard, but he was his facial expressions were totally tracking to his camera. There was some really rather funny expressions. I think the thing about facial expressions being mapped to a camera is you've really got to be careful how much you're contorting your face, which is probably why you'll never find me using it, or you'll be getting twitches left, right, and centre. Anyway, down to the basics, and before we get into the greater chat, I'm going to just summarize things very quickly, in fact, because the news this week is such that it's the same piece of news repeated 1,000 times. The big news of the week is that the concept of virtuality is going back into steamroller mode. To what avail? We will have to wait and see, but it all comes down to the fact that the mighty Facebook, or mighty Zuckerberg, whatever you wish to call it, have purchased the Oculus Rift. This has been somewhat controversial. After all, Oculus Rift was started as a crowdfunding project, and a lot of people were invested in it. I mean, they did get their developer copies of the device and everything else, but of course, it's like lots of people cough up a lead money to get a company started, then the company goes and sells itself off to Facebook. On the other hand, there have been a lot of positive reviews too, saying that this media focus may be yet another chance to bring virtuality to the fore, and that projects that are actually using Oculus Rift compatible viewers like EVE Online and Second Life may actually, get themselves a second or third life as a result. Equally, of course, there have been other players like Minecraft who, within half an hour of the Facebook announcement, dissociated themselves with Oculus Rift entirely, saying that they didn't trust Facebook and had no intention of pursuing Oculus Rift compatible software. Now the hardware belonged to Facebook. So it has been a very sort of mixed feeling. I got a message. I was hoping to get him on, but I couldn't find a Skype contact. But I got a message, for example, this morning from Gift Constable, who was, of course, CEO of the late lamented Electric Sheep. They're the people that brought CSI into Second Life and stuff. And he saw fit to put up a post on his blog, for example, very short and to the point, but just welcoming the third or fourth time round for virtuality resurgence. And so we'll see what we'll see. But clearly, it's a week in which the notion of virtual reality and the things that go with it have once again jumped out of the, shall we say, the niche group of people like us who actually deal with it. And the whole thing has been brought into mainstream focus with, media, big media, left, right, and centre, reporting on the fact that it's a, multi-billion-dollar Facebook takeover. So we will see what we will see, but that will be on the discussion today. Now, we've just been watching, or if you're watching live, you have just been watching at least, Philip Rosedale, as I said, showing off high fidelity. Literally midweek, I've got a report here at VentureBeat.com. Second Life founders, stealth virtual reality startup High Fidelity raises $2.5 million. Is that all? I had a feeling it was more. As Philip was actually saying in the program, of course, True Ventures and Google Ventures, along with Linden Lab and Kapoor Capital, are actually the main backers of the project. I'm not quite sure who the new backers are, but $2.5 million is not to be laughed at as a startup figure. Interestingly, a couple of blogs did actually propose that Facebook consider buying Second Life, so they've got a piece of software to go with their Oculus. Other people immediately responded with, "Oh, don't let Facebook buy Linden Lab." So you can see all the connotations of this. Everybody is dreaming up both evil and optimistic schemes to go with the whole development, but it's certainly all in focus again. Before I head to Tara for her headlines, I'll just mention a couple of other things. ISTE 2014. ISTE is an educational conference. You may remember from the days of Treat TV, they used to have a session called ISTE Talks fairly regularly. They will actually be having, let's see, it's ISTE 2014 will be an experience in Atlanta, Georgia, with educators around the globe. And it will all be produced from their ISTE Sigvi headquarters in Second Life. And it will be beginning, they don't say when it will end, maybe it's going to be a continuing thing. But basically, it begins on Saturday, June the 28th. I believe, yes, I think I'm seeing that right. And I think it's actually a 2-day affair. I think it's just that weekend. And it will be streamed from RL into Second Life and presumably hopefully streamed out from Second Life elsewhere as well. So that's ISTE June 28th. And I've got this courtesy of Scott Merrick. You can find his blog at scottmerrick.blogspot.com. And that's SCOTTMERRICK.blogspot.com. We also have announcements. Next week's program, incidentally, will be pretty much, it'll be a normal program, but our focus next week will be to have a preview of Virtual World's best practices in education, which of course starts in about 10 days' time. So it'll be our last chance to have a sort of thorough spin on it before the actual event begins. Philip Rosedale, of course, will be the opening keynote there, followed by yours truly, oddly enough, who will be doing a machinima panel immediately after him, so that's nice. Anyway, some of the details have now been released about the panels, and Inara Pay's got quite a good blog here. If you just go to modemworld.wordpress.com, she has pretty daily posts on new announcements that are coming up there and commentary as well. There will be a nice sounding panel on the second day, which is on OS Grid in OpenSim, the hypergrid, and Maria Korolov, of course, and Justin Carcasey will both be giving keynotes from there on the same day. And panel discussions Future Virtual Worlds Research and Education will be one of them. That's the one in OpenSim. And he's trying to find it. I can't find it. Oh, yeah. Connecting Past, Present, and Future of Second Life. That's going to be on the Saturday. And that looks like to be a very good panel, too. The likes of... Yes, I'm looking at all them. Hang on, I think I got the wrong page. Never mind. I was about to read out the entirely wrong names. Right, I've got them now. Bot Girl Questy, Will Burns, a favourite on the channel here, Terry Boyce, and Kevin Feenan himself, of course, will be on that panel. So, all steam ahead on that front. Just checking, I haven't... Oh, yes, somebody who hasn't blogged for an awful long time, it seems to me, is... Gwyneth Llewellyn, and she has got a post up this week for the first time in some time, just called Understanding Second Life's Culture. If you go to gwynethlewellyn.net, maybe somebody can type that into text for me, maybe Tara or somebody into the channel. It's a rather long-winded one. gwynethlewelyn.net. But as usual, very in-depth article from her. Anything less than 1 million words is unheard of on her blog, but good reading, nonetheless. And finally, a post from Virtual Ability, who specialise in disability empowerment in virtual worlds and Second Life in particular. The 2014 Mental Health Symposium will be held on April the 26th, which won't actually be that long after Best Practices. That's a Saturday, and it will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Second Life time, which of course is Pacific time, and it will be held at the Sojourner Auditorium on Virtual Ability Island. So a bit of advanced news on that. That should be excellent in the way of speakers and stuff like that. And that's it for my little links. As I said, I could have opened 1,000 links and told you all about them, but they are all about the sale of Oculus Rift. So what's the point? Anyway, for some other headlines and a little roundup of the week, it's over to my partner, Tara Yates.
Thank you, Mal. And greetings, everyone, from the Pacific Northwest, where it has been that way all week. It's actually where I am right now. The sun is out, which is kind of nice because after the gully washer of a good 3 inches of rain or so in 36 hours, I'm glad to see a little steam rising from the ground. Anyhow, well, first off, I sometimes comment on the weather, which I just did, but I also tend to do these little show and tells at the beginning of the show, having kind of exhausted the most recent round of interesting stuff from the Gotcha festivals, this week we're doing rocks. Now these are just not ordinary rocks. These are mesh rocks, and these are a brand new release from Studio Sky. That's Alex Bader. And there's two things in particular besides the fact that these are very attractive. That are, I think, noteworthy about these. First off, they are materials enabled, which means you get more visual texture for your buck than you do with ordinary Second Life rocks, depending upon what texture is applied to them and your viewer settings. But the second thing that is particularly, I think, noteworthy is that unlike your standard Sculpty rock, when you have a mesh object, these can be set. These don't have to be set to phantom, and you can. But they have physicality. So if you walk up to them, you bump into them. You can walk on top of them realistically. And anybody who's ever done any building and worked with rocks, with Sculpty rocks, what you have to do with Sculpty rocks is you have to set them to phantom, and then you have to res another prim if you want to give them, if you want people to be able to walk over them or bump into them. So it's very nice to be able to do that with a single rock rather than having to mess around with a regular prim invisibly, but non-phantom inside a Sculpey rock. So I think these are very cool. Yeah, they come in a box that's mod copy. There may be a no, I guess it's this mod copy. There are 5 different shapes, and each one comes in 3 different sizes, and they can be resized and reshaped. But he's done a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak, by optimizing for land impact on different sizes. So those are, anyway, that's this week's show and tell, and it's as I say, Studio Sky. That's SKYE. Alex Bader, Bader, is the creator of the Studio Sky stuff, all of which is well worth going and wandering around his Sims. If you go to Sky Eljol, SKYE, new word ELGOL, that should kind of put you in the middle of his multiple Sims, and or you can look him up. And all this stuff is in Marketplace too, but it's well worth a visit to his wonderful Sims to take a look. Anyway, okay, well, obviously, as Mal has already noted, the big news this week is the Oculus acquisition by Facebook and all the reactions to those. I have a couple things I wanted to comment on that I thought were perhaps among the more interesting. Obviously, there's been a lot of negative reaction, especially from those who jumped in on the Kickstarter on Oculus Rift. But apparently that's not universal. And one item I ran across, Canadian gaming company Global Core, Ben Unsworth, who is the president of that, was among the first to donate to Oculus's Kickstarter campaign in exchange for a development kit and a copy of Doom 3, etc. And he was interviewed on Wednesday and said that he thought the sale would help the company compete against the likes of Sony and Microsoft in gaming. His only complaint was that although he's one of Oculus's earliest backers on Kickstarter, he never did get the promised copy of Doom 3 and was among the last to receive the his Oculus Rift, his Oculus viewer. And he said that probably had something to do with the fact that we're in Canada. They don't think we complain. We're pretty polite up here, which I thought was rather good. On the subject, on the one of the issues that's come up in regard to those, all the Kickstarters, is this sense of, well, here comes big bucks and we're left in the dirt. And Mona Eberhardt did a nice blog on the subject as far as the issue of what she refers to as entitlement. In other words, the impression that some people seem to have, the mistaken impression that if you pony up on a Kickstarter, that somehow that gives you buying rights or whatever for if the outfit goes public, or it gives you early shares or any of that, and it is no such thing. And so her take is that that's a source of a lot of grousing. Is that sense of entitlement that is based on some very false premises, and I think that article is well worth a read and well worth taking into account. But there's another thing. There's an interesting collision here, and I think this is my own kind of putting things together. A week or so back, one of the items that I ran across was a really good article on the subject of community. By Sarah Judd Welch, who's founder and head of community design at brand development. There we go. At a place called Loyal, where she designs communities for startups, brands, and Fortune 100s. And she comments that the question she's tired of is what's the return on investment of community, and she notes that the business case for community has already been made. and she's very tired of that question. And she said, what she'd much prefer to be asked is, what is the value of community to our customers? What's the value of community to the world? And to them, she would answer back, when have you ever sought more loneliness? When have you ever sought less power, mobility, or opportunity? No one would answer never to these, and herein lies the true power of community. And she has it, some kind of good one-liners. Community is the means by which we find other people who are like us. Community is the means by which we feel less alone. And so you've got kind of those some very basic foundation stuffs, and then she talks about the fact we build communities in organic space and also the advent of online communities and how those develop, and as we all know from time in Second Life, how powerful that sense of community becomes for people. And in Second Life, obviously, there's dozens, zillions of different communities that are reflected. She then goes on with an interesting note here, and this is where I to loop back around to the Oculus news. She says the funny thing is Fortune 100s think they're building community for themselves, for their.
Maybe you try and go back, a recap on the last minute or so of what you were saying there.
It's back now. That was weird.
Yeah,
it's back.
We
That
may
was
have.
weird.
I just posted the link to the article. That was the best line I have heard said in months. Thank you for bringing that up.
Which line?
That communities own themselves.
Yes.
That they can pick up and move.
Yes.
That they organize themselves and police themselves. And they're an animal in and of itself.
Exactly. Exactly.
I never thought of it that way. That is such great insight.
Yeah. Well, and the connection to me with Oculus and the reaction of the Kickstarter, particularly the development people who have reacted negatively, is a reflection of the community that is built up around the Oculus, and it's this what I see as a head-on collision that's happening in countless ways in our culture between our communities and our senses of and our personal sense of community, and corporations whose focus, they may say they want to build a community. Well, no, it's not. Well, their entire focus is on the bottom line. And yes, you get corporations that have a great deal of social conscience and act in that way as far as how they tend to their bottom line, but you've got this risk. I think you've got a continuous risk of how a community that builds up around a brand reacts versus what the brand thinks it wants and what the brand is willing to pay attention to. I think it's certainly been said by a number of far more savvy corporate folks than most that. Having a lively community that associates itself with your brand is incredibly valuable, and the care and feeding of those is something that just you can't leave it to chance. But how many companies do anyway? But I think there's I may actually have to write a blog post about this because there's just a bunch of pieces that I think really knit together in some interesting ways and some ways that are worth pondering. But there are a couple.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Maria said that. It's such a great quote. But, in some ways, it applies to some of the endless discussions we've ever had about Linda Lab here. Carry on.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's part of my point is that, what the things playing out with the multiple reactions to Oculus reflect, in part, that sense of community as it reacts to its running headlong into corporations and especially Facebook. And two things that occurred to me that popped out of the various threads I thought that I saw over the week that I see as some of the collisions. First off and foremost, perhaps, is as it relates to Second Life, especially, is privacy and the use of alts. And if Facebook maintains its current very hard-nosed policy about that, which is at total odds with Second Life's policy as far as privacy and being able to maintain, a persona that is not your RL self and not associated with your RL self, if you choose. Is Facebook ultimately, if it gets into the content side of virtual environments, is it going to let loose of that position? So that's one issue. And the second issue that came up elsewhere was more in relationship to the hardware. There's been a lot of comments about the some people have the sense of disorientation and vertigo and nausea with using Oculus glasses, and there's been work around that. The interesting item was some very preliminary research that's been done about the possibility that women are more prone to that impact. And that it's a one would hope an unintended consequence, but it adds yet another sexist wrinkle to the whole business of what goes on in gaming.
There was actually a headline saying, "Is Oculus sexist?"
Exactly. Well, that was the article I saw, and it sucked me right in. So anyhow, so there's some stuff we can kick around further.
Sure.
But anyway, I do have one last item here, and that is coming up this week is April 1st.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Tomorrow. Well, and I have the perfect item for you for those of you who have friends who rely on Google Maps, and that is you can send them a link to Google Naps, NAPS. A group of Dutch users created Google Naps to uncover the world's coziest and coolest places to take a well-deserved nap. These napping spots, which include Portugal, China, Indonesia, South Africa, Brazil, and all four corners of the U.S., are shared by fellow users. The URL for this is www.googlemaps.info. I'll stick that in chat. And the developers have clearly indicated on their question mark when you go to the URL that this indeed is intended as a parody, and requesting that Google please enjoy it in the spirit with which it has been presented. So there you go. It is a real site. You do have to give it your location in order for the maps to come up.
Oh, great.
Anyway, that's enough for me. I'll shut up and let
I saw that. I thought that was absolutely wonderful. The other map I saw during the week was a picture of the British Isles, with the emphasis on Isles, in the year 2100. And I was looking at it, and it says, given rising sea levels and everything, and I suddenly thought, well, if we wait 100 years, mapping a virtual United Kingdom will be a damn sight easier, because there won't be nearly so much of it. We'll be able to use virtual water, where it doesn't exist at the moment. Anyway, that's rather a gloomy thing, actually. Of course, the Facebook thing is principally a hardware purchase. So, but I did show a couple of funny clips before the virtual reality panel, and people have picked up this week. Somebody actually did a quick 30-second imitation of what virtual world would look like if Facebook actually launched the virtual world itself, which was quite funny because it was just a big F almost everywhere, but really nicely modeled simulator actually, but just F everywhere. And people have been sort of parodying it a bit. So whether they have invested in hardware, which they have, and that is the end game, or whether they will now start looking for things to buy up that will be used with that hardware is another thing entirely. Anyway, this is all up for discussion. It's about time I introduce today's guest. It's really a case of what I now think of as the regular team here. Thank you to Petlove, who's filming today, and who's also sitting in the seat next to Tara. Hi, Petlove. And a wonderful multitasker that you are. And
Thank you.
next to me, as ever, I've got Maria Korolov from Hypergrid Business. So hi there, Maria.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
And we all know what is top of the agenda, but before it occurs to me, I'll get you to do a little Tara, really, before we start engaging in sort of conversation about all that. Do you want to do like a little roundup of news from the week?
Okay, let's see. Amazon cut prices this week for its cloud hosting. And so I immediately called up Kitely and I said, are you guys going to cut your prices? And they said, no, they're not. And I'm going to be filing a story about this tonight. But what they are going to do is they're going to use the money to buy bigger servers and bigger and faster servers so that you get more bang for your buck on Kitely. So that's one of the nice advantages of a cloud-based business. As the prices are going down, 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 the end customer benefits from either getting more stuff or getting a price cut as well. So that's a nice example of what's that law where computer prices drop every 2 years?
This, of course,
not that calves. Anyway,
this is something that really got started by Google, wasn't it? A couple of weeks ago, Google brought all their extra pay storage down, and now everybody's
everybody else has to do the same thing. The Google storage for the Google Drive is ridiculously low. Like, was it $2 for 100 gigabytes or something insane like that?
I think it's only about $5 a month for a terabyte or something ridiculous. It boggles belief, really. Yeah,
it's insane. It's insane. Yes. So what else has been happening? Oh, the VWPE. You mentioned that they released their stuff. Now, did I talk to you about last time I was here? Did I talk to you at all about the IRS and bitcoins?
No, you didn't. But I was going to bring that up. Apparently, it's no longer a currency in the United States. It's a commodity, isn't it?
It's never been a currency. But now it's definitely a commodity.
Right.
So before it was like, well, they didn't say one way or the other. Now, I actually just the day before that news came out, I had filed a story to a financial magazine where I talked to a bunch of financial guys and accountants about this, and they said that the best way to deal with it from the lowest possible taxes perspective is to have it be a commodity, because if you treat it as a foreign currency, you get into some higher tax rates with capital gains and stuff. Whereas if you treat it as a commodity, you actually want on average you're going to pay less taxes. So that's a good thing for consumers, for taxpayers.
Tell me, does that mean, just a question here really, does that mean, is this similar into the way we might view gold as a commodity? In other words, it has a flexible value.
Exactly. Gold or potatoes or real estate or any kind of like stocks and bonds. With potatoes or stocks or with a house or something like that, you have to claim that as income. You claim that as income based on the value of that thing at the time you got that thing. So you convert it to you estimate the value of it. With Bitcoin, it's easy. You pick some big exchange, and that's the price of it. And then if you ever sell it, like if you sell a house later on, or if you sell something else, then you will pay income on the profits. So if you buy a house and then sell the house, you subtract one from the other, and there's your profit, and you pay taxes on it. Or if you sell it for a lower price, you take a loss, and that you get discounts on your taxes for it. So it's a very, very simple process in that way, but there's a little tweak with Bitcoin versus houses, because with a house, you know which house is which.
Oh.
If you buy one house last year and another house this year, and then you sell one of those houses, you know which house you sold and what the profits or loss on that house is. With Bitcoins, they're identical. So if you buy a bunch of Bitcoins at different times, and then you sell them all at once, or you sell some of them and not others, it gets into a mess. But there's an accounting rule in place for that, because potatoes or gold are very similar. You can't really tell one potato from another or one piece of gold from another. And as long as you have good records and you keep track of how much you bought when and what the market price was for it, and then you just have a consistent method for doing it. It's last sold, or whatever it is that you use.
It could.
So there's a process you follow, but you need an accountant who understands that.
So if Bitcoin, for example, became, at the moment it's really volatile, but if at some point it became stable, it might be a way of people investing in savings and stuff like that. If it ever became that kind of commodity. I can't imagine Bitcoin ever being a long-term investment, because it's like if somebody comes up with a better version of Bitcoin. I mean, you say that the values of the network, and people say that all the time. The bigger the network, the more the value. The thing about networks is that they seem really, really solid until the day they fall apart and everyone leaves. Like what happened with MySpace or Friendster. Millions of users, and all of a sudden a better network came along and everyone switched. There are no switching costs for switching from one network to another. And if there's no network costs, then the rate of switching can be very high, which makes any kind of long-term investment in Bitcoin extremely dangerous. You want to have anchors that force people to use that currency. And with real currencies, you have those anchors. National governments say you could only pay taxes in our currency. So that's a legal tender. You have to be able to accept this currency to settle debts. So those are like regulatory anchors. So no matter how much alternative currency you have in the United States, and there are plenty, you can print your own money in the United States. It's perfectly legal. We had the Ithaca Hours in Ithaca, New York, where I lived, and there's Valley Dollars here in Western Massachusetts. It's printed money. You can use it in stores and stuff. But it's not required. So if you have these Valley Dollars and I come to you and I say, here, take these. And you're like, yeah, right. I'm not going to take them. You don't have to take them. There's nothing forcing you to take them. And that's one of the problems with the virtual currencies is that nobody has to take them. There's no guarantee that. Not legal tender, as they say. It's if I can interrupt here again, actually. I often kind of, when considering the future of capitalism and all that sort of stuff, and the idea of currency in the first place. I mean, to me, currency is a commodity and was probably the first. Banknote was indeed the first virtual commodity. But a lot of it all comes down to trade and barter. That's all we've got. We've just formalized it by the use of currencies, and who knows what shenanigans are going on. But I did read in the week, and I'm inserting it at this point actually because it may be pertinent, about a sort of scam that is going on, and that is that how some software keeps patched into your machine, with cookies and tracking and all sorts of other things. And Philip, in his demo earlier on, he was, you've got the cloud part of it and you've got the peer-to-peer part of it. But he basically wants people in the alpha who will literally we will allow him to use our machines while we're asleep, to generate parts of this world. We'll be active participants in keeping the world online. Now, that we'll come back to that in a minute, but this is a separate matter. What I read in the week was that some people who are mining Bitcoin have actually surreptitiously done this to other people's computers. In other words, other people's computers and their horsepower has been stolen in order for a speculator to mine Bitcoin currency. And I keep wondering, is that theft? If they use your processor and they take all the Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's illegal. They're called zombie botnets, and governments around the world are trying hard to take them down. It happens when you have an insecure computer or lack of patches or a vulnerability that's just been discovered. And these zombie botnets are used for two purposes: to send out spam and to mine Bitcoin. Now, with spam, you usually rent it out to spammers, and so you can rent out the zombie botnet, or you can use the zombie botnet directly to mine Bitcoins. Which is one of the other problems I have with Bitcoin, is that since these zombies have no cost or very little cost associated to it for these criminals, it means that criminals could make Bitcoins cheaper than legitimate people who have to pay for their computers. And this is a case of one of those bad money driving out good money, and the Bitcoins are rewarding the criminals, not the honest people. And that's
so it's a very contentious area. Yeah, I must say that was a bit worrying. The thought that somebody might be on your computer every night making an absolute fortune in Bitcoins.
Well, no, that's better than it's sending out spam. If your computer is sending out spam, then if your computer is wasting time making Bitcoins for somebody else, then the worst that's going to happen is your computer is wasting your electricity, and the thief gets a few Bitcoin out of it. If you're sending out spam, you may lose your internet connection because you're identified as a spammer.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through all the channels to get it reactivated, prove your computer's clean, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, it's such a minefield being online these days, isn't it? Okay, what else have we got?
Yep. So that's the IRS thing. So that was nice. Let's see what else. I posted a little sticky note script that apparently became popular with people. Post-its, which is a unique advantage of OpenSim. One of several over Second Life is you can put text on a prim, and without needing media on a prim or anything, you can draw pictures on a prim surface, and it creates a brand new texture. And so you can have made a little sticky note script where you type in the text in the description, and it puts it on the surface of a sticky note, and you can click on the sticky note to change its color. So just cute little example of how to use that little scripting command in OpenSim. So so now, are you ready for the talk about the Oculus Rift?
Yes. Having exhausted everything else, let's return to where we started. Your thoughts, for sure.
So my thought is that this is everything we wanted. We wanted virtual reality to come sooner. We wanted the big players to get involved. We gave money to Kickstarter because we wanted this to happen. And I understand that, it's kind of like when your band goes big and sells out. It's, and you feel betrayed and abandoned. And, it's or like having your best friend leave you to play with the cooler kids. It's so you do get this sense. But I think overall, I don't think it's the best possible outcome. If some giant had to buy this up, it's better than Microsoft buying it up and keeping it a proprietary platform. Now, Sony already has their device, which is on a proprietary platform. It's a closed system. I I think it's also better than Apple buying it up and having their closed ecosystem for this. So at the very least, the Facebook is not a huge hardware company. I don't think they're going to build a whole new hardware channel based on this. They're a social networking company that makes their money from advertising. So all they care about is getting the most number of people on here so they can show them ads. And of all the potential outcomes, I think that this is, of monetizing this and making it go big, I think this is one of the least offensive ones. Because to make this go big, and I've mentioned this a few times, on the show too, about how much money AOL spent getting people to go online. When you're trying to get an entire population to switch its behavior and embrace a totally new kind of technology, no matter how good for them it is, no matter how many opportunities it will offer them in the future, in the short term, to get these people to switch and learn something new is extremely, extremely expensive. And by paying $2 billion for it, well, on the one hand, it means that Facebook now has $2 billion less to invest in it. But I don't think that's probably a drop in the bucket for them. It means they're serious. It means that they're really, really serious about this. And it means that everybody else is on notice that they're about to miss the boat.
It's very interesting, if I can interrupt briefly. And well, actually, two things. Firstly, I was listening to Dratster's radio show or podcast or whatever you call it on Friday, and of course he actually had an interview with you where you went into some of this. Although I gather it was recorded a few weeks ago, it wasn't actually done this week. But that was very good too. So if you want to hear more, Maria, do check out Dratster's podcast. But oh Lord, I've lost my thread. What was the other thing I was going to interrupt with? Actually, you better carry on. I'll have to go back to it. Aren't I great? Yeah, too busy promoting Drasters to remember my own thread. Carry on. I'll come back to it.
I love it when trains of thought derail.
So it also means that this will be affordable, because that's one of the things Facebook said about this is they're not planning to make money from the hardware. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Facebook is already subsidizing cell phone connectivity in emerging worlds, where if people put Facebook on their phones, the bandwidth that they need to access Facebook is free. They are investing in subsidizing technology and connectivity in order to get people on their platform. Since this is something that could be very expensive, it's $350 right now for this set, and I assume price is gonna fall over time. But it's a pretty pricey thing right now, and in emerging countries, it's gonna be even more expensive. The fact that Facebook is not a hardware company bodes really well for the eventual price of this. That it's going to be as low as they can get it, and that they're going to keep pushing it lower. And I think that's one of the reasons that Palmer may have decided to sell out, is that was one of his big concerns as well, is that he wanted to get this out to as many people as possible. In fact, the original Kickstarter plan was for him to get $250,000 to create a kit, so a low-cost kit that people could assemble these things at home. And as it turned out, he got 10 times more money than he asked for, and then $100 million in venture capital funding. And all of a sudden, they're putting out these things which are just fantastic. So I think so for that reason, too, that's a good fit.
I remembered my other train of thought, actually. It was just a brief one, but it was actually mentioned in the sort of talk during the week, and that was the feeling that Facebook had actually come in rather late to adopting mobile technologies, which, of course, now is their biggest outlet, and even the new thing, wearable tech, and that rather uniquely they're taking a sort of a long-term aspect with Oculus, where it's Zuckerberg just wants something that is cutting edge and is certain to come down the line, but he wants to be first with it. He doesn't want to miss the boat like he did with mobile and wearable tech.
Yep.
So that and keeping it all separate for the moment is a worthy thing. The only thing is, we discussed this all the while. To me, Oculus is one of many gadgets that I think will contribute to a whole mesh of tools, user interfacing tools we'll use in the future. We mentioned last week about I said maybe I should patent the glasses that can go opaque and transparent, on command. And I ended up hearing something about that in the week. So I don't think, somebody probably has patented it already if the US government's allowing them to.
You gotta be faster. You gotta be faster.
But the other thing that makes me curious is that, this huge investment, absolutely huge investment by Facebook, is in only one aspect of virtual world interfacing as it is at the moment. It's a supremely, wraparound 3D visual environment. But as we've said before, the headsets to date haven't had microphones built into them. They use motion sensing from your head, don't they? But not your eyes. And, lots of people working on different things. And we can never know in advance what's going to become ubiquitous. But if, nobody, I can't see a future where people are going to be walking down the street, colliding with lampposts, wearing an Oculus Rift. It's always going to be a desktop or a couch kind of city experience, isn't it?
First of all, you can't say the word always.
No. Okay, sorry. Forbidden language.
Because for all you know, these things will eventually shrink down to the size of sunglasses and automatically become transparent when you're walking around or where anybody comes up to you.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Rift itself, obviously, but yeah.
I mean, the Rift as it is right now, but it's going to get smaller. It's going to get lighter. It's going to evolve dramatically. Plus, you've got Google Glasses and the similar augmented reality things that are coming from that direction. So a lot of different things happening. A lot of different. There's the Sony headset. There's a few other competitors on the market. They're far, far behind. But if somebody were to buy them up and throw a whole bunch of money at it, given the fact that they've already seen how Oculus has solved their problems, it's always faster to catch up, than to do something fresh from scratch. So if somebody buys up one of these competitors, and I'm not naming, I'll name names. If Google, if Microsoft, if Apple, whoever buys up some of these smaller startup companies, throws a whole bunch of money and people at it, it could develop into something that catches up quickly. And there's going to be a few different approaches to it, and we're going to see which one wins. And I agree with you that it's not the hardware is just one piece of it. So Facebook is going to have a virtual world platform to go with it. And now Google is coming at it from the augmented reality side. So the stuff that they add is very minimalist. They might add little text alerts, or they might add little, Google search results or whatever it is that they're putting up on that screen. Tiny amounts. They're probably, can just use basic HTML to display it. It's very simplistic. And the Oculus Rift is coming from this immersive direction. So, people will be buying things. And I don't know if it's going to be high fidelity, if it's going to be Second Life or OpenSim. Cloud Party is already off the market. Maybe Yahoo will reactivate it now that they've seen which way the wind is blowing. And get in on it. But yeah, with these technologies, you want to be the early adopter. You want to be the first mover. You want to be the person who sets which way things are going and make everyone else follow along. So they're all betting on you want to be the leader in the space. And if you're too far behind, then you look at Microsoft. They're third in mobile after Apple and Google. Apple, they were no account. Was 1% of the PC market. Everyone had written them off, and all of a sudden, well, what the hell happened? And Google is a search engine, and all of a sudden they're dominating the mobile space, and Microsoft's like, what, let's throw as much money as we can into this.
Yeah, we should mention that after years of waiting, the other thing that happened this week is the dreaded Microsoft Office arrived on the iPad, and actually, apparently, it's there's not only has it got a lot of downloads, but apparently some people have found a hole in it where they can get a free download by. I better not say anything, but apparently an awful lot of people are getting free versions of Office because of the way Microsoft allow you to have 5 copies or something, and people are logging in with different IPs and things, getting the same copy, and there's a complete hole in Microsoft's server, basically.
If I could get just a quick couple of things in on the Oculus end of things. First off, it's probably worthwhile to keep in mind that while $2 billion sounds like a lot of bucks to us, in the scheme of Facebook, there was another recent investment on their part, and I think it was hardware related, that was like $35 billion. So $3 billion to Facebook is chump change, even if it's not chump change to any of us. There was, what was the other thing I was thinking about? I think I have had a train wreck too.
So they probably do have money left over for marketing this and pushing it down everyone's throat.
Yeah, I know what it was. Thanks to Will Burns for this for running across this particular quote from Wired in relationship to VR headsets. Which I think is one of these points well taken, and that is VR headsets are a lot like a trampoline. They're fun and exhilarating once in a while, but not every day, let alone 3 to 4 times a day. And just like a trampoline, few people actually own one, despite how cool everyone thinks they are.
Yeah, indeed. I was going to invite Will back on the program today, but I couldn't find him before we came on. So, yes, he did have some very apt comments on that. What was interesting too, again, obviously there's people watching this in replay or even live who weren't watching Philip's demo before. I found that fascinating, especially in the Q&A thing after he'd sort of demoed the actual high fidelity itself on the screen and with the sensors and everything. He made some interesting comments about he doesn't see his platform using advertising, though he did say he would like to start a new virtual currency to go with it. The other interesting thing is, a couple of bloggers said, Facebook should buy Linden Labs, that they've got stuff to work with their Oculus. And as we know, even from the beta viewer from Second Life for Oculus, it comes on screen. It's a different viewer. It has to be specially formatted to work properly with the Oculus. And I've seen Dratster's machinima of him playing around in it. And quite frankly, I don't find it an interesting video to watch when I've got 2 of the same thing tilted at different angles. I actually could bring Petlove in here. I mean, can you imagine Pet also doing camera work with an Oculus Rift? It would just not be quite the same thing, really, would it?
So you'd be broadcasting your point of view rather than using a mouse?
Yeah, but the broadcast actually involves 2 separate pictures. It's like there's 2 sort of side-by-side views that in the Oculus Rift sort of merge to create the total surround.
Oh, I'd be cross-eyed, dizzy, and falling over before it was over.
Yeah, I know.
But guys, we don't use 3D cameras to film in real life either, not unless we're making a 3D movie. But when we film in real life, we use a single lens. Yeah. There's no reason to use the Oculus Rift when filming Inworld Machinima. I mean,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And if you were filming 3D Machinima for some reason, you would use a special camera setup for that, probably.
There's software for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think basically it means that whatever Just a Second Live and EVE Online are coming out with special Oculus Rift versions, there's always going to be this separation of the viewer. In other words, the viewer that is compatible with Oculus Rift is very different from the viewer that is just a 3D, experience on screen.
Except that I think that Second Life, unlike Eve, lends itself to both people wearing the different kinds of viewers sharing the same space.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm sitting here with my regular TV viewer and you're sitting in there with an Oculus Rift viewer, I mean, you're getting a more immersive experience, but I can still interact with you and give you things and talk to you. Now, because Second Life,
so long as you don't ask me to type.
Yeah, well, I've had this argument before. Right now, I can pick up my cell phone and say, Siri, send my son a text message, come home now. And Siri will send a text message and send it out to him. There is absolutely no reason why we can't build in voice recognition into the viewer, even for people who don't like using voice in Inworld, simply as a way to communicate to the viewer itself. Yeah. Like you could say, Oculus.
Brilliant.
Type, send text message, or type local chat, whatever, and it just types what it says.
Yeah, I've got some, I think Dragon Dictate works that way for me. You've got, I don't use it very often, but I can switch between what they call a command mode and a dictation mode. And if I'm in command mode, it simply sends instructions to the computer. Whereas if I'm dictating, I'm writing. Yeah.
Now, I use Siri all the time for when I'm driving. I will use the voice commands. When I just want to add quick things to the shopping list, I'll just say it instead of bothering to type it in. And this technology is getting good, and it's getting better very quickly. So whenever people say, "Oh, I can't imagine doing this for more than 15 minutes at a time," you will. Right now, it's got the latency issues. It's got the shading issues that women have a problem with, as you mentioned. There's all these issues. But who would have thought 30 years ago that we were going to spend 8 hours a day sitting, staring at a screen? Right? But we are doing that right now because we're always online. It's faster. We don't have to wait for the modem to dial up and stuff. We have these fast computers. We have multiple screens. We have all this stuff happening. This stuff will happen with Oculus. The version we have today is not the version we're going to be using 5 years from now or 10 years from now. No. It will become more usable. It will become more user-friendly. It will become, the text recognition when it gets super good. It will have in-world keyboards we can type if we want to. It will have better positioning. So right now, the way both the Oculus and the Sony device work is it uses the built-in accelerometer in the device itself to know if you're turning your head, and then it uses a second external camera that's pointed at the device for its location in space. So if you move your head forward or back, or if you wave your arms, it picks those things up too.
I also posted, and I'd forgotten all about it because it didn't really go onto my main blog, but there was an interesting article I read today in a science blog where they reckon they've already done it, but they reckon we're within 10 years of mass deployment. Basically software that you're better control your computer and the virtual world with your mind. Whereas you'll think.
Oh, great.
Things. You may still talk to have conversation, but you will think to do what you want to do, if you see what I mean. So
the handicapped are already using it to control prosthetic limbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was wondering.
Yes.
I was wondering if there are any studies or any indication of whether or not Oculus Rift will impact eye health. Because you're close up on a brighter screen for extended periods of time. I wonder what the long-term effect of that would be.
I think it's a little too early to know.
Yeah, I suspect it's going to be two things, rather like we have already. Nothing to do with the dizziness people got on the beta one. For some purposes, it will probably make an vast improvement. If it's being used for therapy, immersion therapy, for example, it will probably be more effective than anything we've got already. on the other hand, for people who to whom full immersion is a bit scary, and actually I include myself in that way. I don't really fancy. I don't actually, I love the immersion per se, but I like to be able to look away from the screen and anchor myself in the real world, and just remind myself now and again that this is an immersion.
Yeah.
And the idea that I'm going to wear, of wearing the Oculus Rift. I mean, I'd like to try one out for sure, but I can't see. It's like wearing the headphones to do this show. At the end of the show, I just can't wait to get the damn headphones off. They're a weight on me.
Well, you can take it off. You could pick it up, and they're like ski goggles. Any moment you can pick them up and just move them around if you want to.
The parallel I was thinking of a minute ago is the way I use Radagast or Pocket Metaverse on the iPad, which are text clients. I have the option to do that and have no immersion. But I can go to Second Life or Firestorm and have the immersion, and presumably I can go to Oculus Rift and have even more immersion. So it's degree, so long as there's different viewers that access these different depths of immersion, then that's, that is fine with me. It's sort of what you want at a given time. And, the beauty of it is that you can be as lightweight or as heavyweight as you want, hopefully.
Well, as far as the actual eye health, because you have the two separate screens, your eyes aren't trying to focus on a near image. You're looking. So when I wore it, it actually felt like I was looking at something in the distance.
Okay.
So for me, I didn't. So I wrote a helicopter simulation, and I'm a bad helicopter pilot. So I crashed into things. So there was a little bit of like turmoil associated with that. And I had another space simulation where I'm sitting in a space cockpit and I'm anchored in the cockpit. So as I'm flying around, and so that one was much easier because I'm not like upside down in the helicopter. I'm right side up in a space cockpit, and the universe is kind of rotating around me, which is much easier to deal with. That's what Eve Valkyrie is doing, because so they had this separate space fighting game, because that was just a perfect fit for you sitting in a cockpit. But sitting in a cockpit, I didn't have any focusing problems, because as far as my eyes were concerned, I'm looking at something off in the distance. And they already have mechanisms in place to adjust the lenses individually. So if your eyes are, need correction, and so that even the basic kit comes with alternatives. And I also think that you will be able to dial the brightness. You could probably control it with the on-screen, with just commands, lower the brightness, increase the brightness, as you control the volume and stuff. And over time, I think that some of the other things, like the shading issue you brought up, which for me that was like, oh no, not another thing that just another hit against women. Oh, just what we needed. So in the article mentioned that it just takes processing power to do the shading correctly, and processing power is coming. So that will get there. The latest Oculus Rift with the processing power we have today is already got the nausea down to almost nothing, because they fixed the latency issue, they fixed the motion blur issue. Shading, I'm sure is going to get fixed, and I'm really looking forward to see what happens. I am very optimistic about this.
Great.
All right.
I was going to say I can't wait to try one. I do want to try one.
Have you tried it yet, Tara? I know you have the kit, and you've got.
I have the kit. I have the beta information for Second Life, and I haven't had time to get things plugged in and downloaded and installed and fiddled with, and
all the stuff you have to do.
It's one of those that I need to carve out a couple hours that I can say, okay, I'm going to focus on the Oculus and not have anything else interrupt me. So,
which will probably be the only thing you can do once you got that help.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad I don't have one, and I have to go to a conference to try this on, because I cannot afford the time.
Yeah,
because you have to. It's so early. You have to be such a super early adopter to do this, that you have to configure everything, and it's just such a steep learning curve right now. It's designed the developers. It's a developer kit.
Exactly,
it's not an
yeah.
end user kit. So it is tricky to use, and I want to be in place for when this whole thing explodes. I want to have my business up and running. I want to have the hypergood directory working. I want to be ready for whatever happens, and I'm kind of behind the ball right now. So I've got too many other things to worry about without playing with Oculus.
You should have another year or two, shouldn't you? Before it's ready.
The predictions or the forecast as far as commercial release on the Oculus prior to the Facebook release was at least a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What they've completely run out of the original developer kits. They have more. They have a version 2 that is now available. It's still a developer kit, and those are shipping in July.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, my sense from everything I see is, I wouldn't the absolute earliest I would expect to see one hit the shelves would be over a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the thing is that all of my competitors, for whatever it is that they decide to do, are all realizing the same thing and are getting into it to be ready in 2 years. And so that's the thing, is that it's not just that you have to be ready when the consumers arrive. It's that you have to have the best possible product when the consumers arrive.
Yeah.
Because everybody out there who read that Facebook announcement now has that same idea, saying, oh my God, this is the next app store. I could be the next Angry Birds. Okay, screw everything that I'm doing now. I'm just heading in this direction now before everybody else gets the same idea. And of course, everyone else is going to have the same idea.
Now, one of the things that came up in the week, apart from High Fidelity announcing a new round of finance, and that was mentioned by Philip, of course, is that the High Fidelity platform will come, as is said, with Oculus Rift out of the box. So Philip clearly sided with the idea of Facebook having it is fine. What I find is interesting, though, is that from what he was saying about High Fidelity, the whole system basically seems to use a combination of cloud servers, which is fine, that's one thing, but also peer-to-peer networking, the thing about having open channels that your computer contributes to the world and the network. And it does occur to me that if Philip's platform, for example, in a couple of years really takes off and is using this system and maybe using Oculus Rift version 2, the back end of that system would seem to me to be not quite Facebook's thing either. I'm not talking about the cloud part of it. I'm talking about the peer-to-peer part of it, where the end user will, in some ways, be much more in control of actually the virtual world. A bit like people who make dresses and stuff in Second Life are in control of they're contributing, as it were. And I also wonder. At the moment, everybody's assuming that Oculus Rift will, carry on as is, and it be ready for prime time before too long because it's now got a lot of money. But whether the different platforms that will be, software platforms or network platforms that will be up for using it are actually going to be vastly different. For example, Second Life is Second Life, and it is simply creating a viewer that uses Oculus Rift. High Fidelity is clearly going to be something vastly different, but it will be able to use Oculus Rift. As you mentioned, Devon will be set to use Oculus Rift. So the hardware and the software platforms that actually use it don't seem to be as yet intrinsically linked, and I would have thought Facebook might end up in this odd position where they own a hardware system where some of the software is agreeable and some of the software is less than agreeable to the way they work. Basically,
the Oculus has standard API, so anybody could enable that as an input, the same way that you can use the same mouse on a PC or a Mac or anywhere else. So the mouse Mac is, I think, has fewer buttons, but the same, keyboard or whatever. But it's just an input device, and we already have the platforms that support the Oculus Rift are already mutually incompatible. You have the big game engines support Oculus Rift. Unity is a very popular platform for creating Oculus Rift environments. It's totally separate. We've got Second Life and OpenSim, which is, again, totally separate. And that eventually will shake out. Hopefully what will happen, and I think that Facebook might be heading in this direction, is that the social worlds, at least, may be connected. So the proprietary game platforms, you don't want to fly from Eve Valkyrie into World of Warcraft and just start shooting down all the dragons or stuff. They might not like it. But if you have a social, more realistic social kind of platform like the web, I don't know. Facebook might very well set up something like an AOL where it's their own closed social platform. Because right now, Facebook is kind of like semi-closed. They've got open APIs. There's the Facebook graph you can hook into. You can have Facebook registration for websites. But for the most part, when people use Facebook, they're on Facebook's site. So if they have a virtual world, it will be there's a good chance that will be a Facebook virtual world, and they will open it up to the other worlds only when they have to. The way AOL only opened up to the web when they really, really, really had to. I mean, and they probably waited a little longer than they should have.
The difference, more like the difference between it's a hardware-software thing. I mean, you can run whatever software will run on Windows, on a Windows machine. And developers port stuff so it's compatible with both Mac and Windows and Linux. And so I have a hard time imagining that Facebook would remotely consider that they have to control every corner of the software that uses the hardware.
Oh no,
I think a bigger issue is you have Sony coming along, you have Oculus Rift, you have various others, and you have devices that are not compatible with each other. And so then you're up against the same thing that you're, then you have developers just like right now, they have to develop for iPads, and they have to develop for
the Androids. Androids and Microsoft's,
So there's that. Will they come together to agree, or are we going to have platform wars as we already presently have?
And I think also, my interest in the future of interfacing generally is pertinent here, because the last time we had something that come along which is ubiquitous, I think, from a hardware point of view, was the mouse. Right? The mouse changed everything. It was Apple first, but before long you had the Windows one, and then you do actually have multi-button ones on the Mac now if you want them, because you can do much more with two than one, etc. But the actual mouse itself, became the ubiquitous thing. The keyboard we had already, right? That goes back from manual typewriters and stuff like that. There has not really been any new interfacing tool that is what we call ubiquitous since then. I don't think
the camera. The camera. It's ubiquitous. It's USB. You can plug it in anywhere. Multiple tons of manufacturers all make cameras that are compatible with all computers. Also, voice recorders, microphones.
The microphone. All these technologies existed before computers, so they've really just been adapted. But I agree. They are so common now. We use them. But I'm thinking in the post glasses, the post Oculus world, or whatever, down the line somewhere. It's not just that all this is drawing attention to virtual reality again and the power of it. But it's also, at some point, there has to become something that will be the ubiquitous add-on for interfacing, and it's going to have to be something that isn't limited to Windows, Mac, Linux, iPads, Androids. It's going to have to be something that comes along. Maybe in the future something like the Leap Motion will be built into our pads, or maybe it will all be done with detection of your face and ID and stuff. There are a lot of things on the agenda here. There are too many to mention. It's a fascinating time, right. But I don't think mainstream traction is going to happen until as far as this advanced immersion, if you like, is concerned, until all the players finally come up with something that there may be variations on it, but the actual device itself will be ubiquitous. You have 100 types of different mouses and trackpads, but you still have that one thing. And I don't know that we've got the signs yet, have we, of one thing?
I can see a world in which you have a console in your living room that's a game-oriented one, like, say, Sony's.
Yeah.
Where it's optimized for gaming, for fast responses, for super high graphics, and you pay a premium for it. And it evolves slowly, And another device in your office that you use for virtual meetings that's optimized for collaboration and interactivity.
Yeah.
And your company pays for it, or if you're a freelancer, you pay for it yourself. And schools in schools might have something that's optimized for education that Apple will subsidize to get it out to everybody, in hopes that when they graduate, they'll stick with the Apple devices. Yeah. And they might remain incompatible for quite some time. Just in fact, to this day, the Apples, the consoles, and the Microsoft machines are incompatible with one another. They run different software, they run different operating systems, they have different peripherals to a large degree. They may or may not be able to access the web the same way. The consoles, I don't think any of them can really access the web very well. And we're paying for it. We're paying over and over again. I have 2 consoles in my house. I have a bunch of laptops, PCs, iPhones, tablets. that they're all, at heart, they're all a computer, right? So you might say, well, this is all the same device. I'm just paying for it again and again in a slightly different shape. How much of an idiot am I? And I can't answer that question.
Well, no, I am the same. Sorry, I'll come back to you, Tara. I am very much the same, and as Tara will tell you, because we're online all the while anyway, most of the time. No, it's not that. I go over and I sit down with the pads, and I get stuff done. When it comes to consuming news and tagging it and stuff like that, I get it done so much quicker. And if I'm watching video or something, I can use Chromecast, or I can use the Apple TV. I can just send it to a screen and watch it. That is speed and convenience for me. And, but it doesn't stop me coming over here when I got a show to do, or when I want to do a bit of video editing, if I ever do. And, website stuff or something that, tactile-wise, I just find difficult on an iPad. I find the iPad perfect, and the Android, which is even smaller for some things, but for other things I come to the console, as it were. And I think that's the beauty of it. They are all computers, but we use the device we want in the context we want. And the speed of stuff I do day in, day out in the last few years since I've had the iPad it's just phenomenal. I get through stuff so fast compared with anything I can do on the desktop. But, it doesn't end there. I do have to come to the desktop for other things. Sorry, Tara, I really butted in there, didn't I?
Well, I was just going to comment that, we are at a phase where I think it's entirely premature to begin to second guess what may come out on top, and what the gadget will look like, and what name it will have attached to it. Because until stuff are in public consumer release, you really don't know. I mean, look at what happened between VHS and Betamax.
Oh, yeah.
Classic example. Head-to-head collision of two different ways of coming at the same thing, and one of them won, and the other one is the other one is the Edsel of early video.
I still have my beta tapes.
Yeah, well, that actually is. You've always got to remember that example, Tara, because it's also a classic case of the worst one won out. The public imagination.
No, the other one was the beta had a much better picture, but the VHS was cheaper and bigger. It just went bigger.
Yeah, VHS won out.
Because VHS, the porn people lined up behind VHS.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Maria, because I was wondering how that would tie in with the Oculus Rift, too, to be honest with you. I mean, if 90% of the internet likes what they like, the Oculus Rift's going to fit right in there.
Yeah, so I think...
especially if you take it with something like recently announced, actually I just had I had an item in my incoming this morning, about the latest release in a glove for motion capture.
Oh, wow!
That that level of stuff is coming along, and so what were the
nanobots
the garments of a while back that we had so many giggles over?
Yeah.
So this is something where the Facebook acquisition might actually have an impact. So say Google comes up with their own version of this, or buys, whatever. And Facebook has a curated, safe virtual world where if there's too many boobs showing, they will, kick it out, right? Like they try to do on their website. And something else allows you to have a more open platform where you can connect your own worlds that you host yourself that has tons of boobs, as many boobs as you can squeeze in there, up to your prim limits. So
and lots of pink wiggly things too. Sorry.
I know.
Oh, Lord.
We're all women here. We're all thinking boobs. They're gonna win. But you're right. So given that, it will be in Facebook's interest to open up the platform to allow their users to access those boobs elsewhere, even if they can't get boobs on their own platform, in order to ensure that the Facebook ecosystem wins out versus somebody else's. And the same,
because they'll sell more Oculus Rifts even if they're not exclusively used on Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the same thing's happening with iPads, iPhones right now. And I don't know to what degree porn is responsible. It's probably just a price factor. But you cannot get pornography applications on the Apple store because they curate their apps. Yeah. Now, you can still get as much porn as you want just by surfing the web on your iPhone, I'm told. So you're not like, you're not forbidden from any porn if you have an iPhone or an iPad. But if you, so that allows for that degree of freedom. But if it was totally controlled, if there was no porn on the iPhone at all, that would have probably killed their business model right then and there.
You've raised a very good point, because basically on Android or on the iPad, if you have a web browser, and it'll come with a web browser, that is your gateway in. But I certainly know that when I download the apps, either something that goes to online video or something like another web browser, I get alerts saying, you have to be 17 years or older because they can't control the content. And I think that's fair enough. It means the built-in apps, the stuff they do control, but there are still obvious things like a web browser that everybody needs, where they warn you that using the web unmoderated can get you anywhere. Right. But look at Microsoft. They actually are monitoring people using the Xbox. They monitor the chat so that, to avoid swear words, you're not allowed to do certain things on the Xbox. They're actually, it's complete censorship. Whether you approve or not, and censorship's a dodgy thing. I don't really believe in it, but I don't really.
For the kids, they're trying to keep it on the kids' minds that there are some things you don't do, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Right, except
but
that they're
it's
trying
like
to, they're selling to adult men too,
yeah.
and
True.
and adult women and adult women.
If they want the Xbox to take off as a multimedia platform as opposed to just a gaming platform, and this seems to be what they're trying to do with TV channels and everything on it, they have to get out of the fact that it's a child's product. If it was still a child's product, specifically, like a Teen Grid in Second Life, then you put the rule book down. Arguably not too, but that's another matter. But Microsoft have very funny attitudes as far as I can see. If there's somebody start trying to promote something to the adult multimedia, multidisciplinary market, and they're still treating it like a kid's toy, that they're falling into that trap. People are not going to experiment with it if they think they're going to be blocked at every second turn.
It's got to be difficult to walk that fine line, because the people who create the technology, they want it to be available to as many people as they can sell it to, but yet at the same time they don't want to attract the criticism that they would attract if if they just let it be known that yes, you can use this anywhere, try it. They can't say that.
Well, I'm looking at things like TV decoder boxes for satellites and cable and stuff like that. And in the settings, if it's in a family home, you have the option, not only to lock kids from not using it, but you can actually specify which channels the kids can watch and which channels require a password for the adults to watch.
Yep.
So, it's not insurmountable. It's the arrogance of sort of the companies that just say, we're the overlords here and we're the moral, we dictate the moral stance. Whereas there are systems that work perfectly well to, lock it down for certain age groups and open it up for adults. It's, it should be a user choice thing, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's interesting. All those, let me just say one last thing. All those science fiction writers from 30, 40, 50 years ago who, we're talking gloves, it'll be implants next. We're talking Oculus Rift, headsets, it'll be, like you said, Maria, they'll be so lightweight, so small. They might be contact lenses for some people.
I would be right now starting to invest in the companies that remove the implants after they've gone out of fashion.
Yeah.
Ooh, good one.
Good one.
If you can imagine it, it will happen. That is the beauty of some of the classic science fiction. I always look at Star Trek, and I was never really a Trekkie, but I watched the old ones. But the communicator, well, it happened.
Right.
And sort of the holodeck. Is a great inspiration. For all of us, I suppose. And these are, as soon as something is possible, then people start working on it. And I think the most fascinating thing I read, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned it last week, is that Arthur C. Clarke wrote a novel about a space elevator. And they're finally going to be building that. It's slightly different from the way Arthur C. Clarke imagined it, but we now have the technology to actually build the space elevator, so we don't need to send rockets to satellites. We will elevate ourselves up. And they're seriously, I don't know whether it be 20 or 30 years before the first person shoots up the elevator, but I mean, it's now being worked out and it's practical to build it. So, you never know. You never know what's on the horizon, but science fiction is a great way of looking at it.
Except for one problem with science fiction is that in the vast majority of cases, when they imagine some kind of future, that future is unchanging. So if you look at Star Trek from the first episode to the last one, once they picked a certain technology, that technology hadn't changed. I mean, even us, if you look at our cell phones today and 5 years ago, dramatic changes. But on Star Trek, the uniforms don't change, the interfaces don't change, nothing changes.
Well, they did actually. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
Every time they refresh the movie series, something changes slightly, but they are stuck with their own genre, as it were, their own backstory.
Yeah, and they're not continuing to evolve the technology. So, and that always bugged me about science fiction novels. Oh, these medicines are too expensive. The poor people can't get them, so we have massive uprisings. wait 5 years, they'll be off patent, and the poor people will be able to afford them. You know, things
Hopefully.
move, things change, things happen. It's not
Static.
and
It's not static. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
I mean, look at Philip Linden.
Yeah, well,
Let's look back at our own picture, at our very own personal pictures from 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Well, that's a
40
little
years
different,
ago,
yeah.
well, no, even our
and
first.
grimace at our hairdos and clothes and giggle at what our parents wore and
I only have to look at our first avatar,
Yeah.
for that matter. I have. This is very
I still
interesting.
have my first avatar.
Yeah, I still have somewhere.
No, I'm still in my first avatar.
Oh.
I took an actual picture of my face, merged it with a default template, stuck it on my face, and I haven't touched it since.
Nice job.
I never got the chance to do that properly in Second Life. There was a service doing it, and I missed my free makeover. But I did it on a couple of other platforms.
No, I did it by hand with Photoshop.
Good trick. No, I've got.
Or actually,
that's
GIMP.
it.
I'm cheap. I use GIMP.
Yeah. I have another piece of technology thing that came up here. It's actually on my other computer now. This falls into exactly what we're talking about. The basic, the site I'm looking at is App Advice, or one word, APP advice.com. And the link is so long that I can't even attempt to do this. But it's a thing that was prototyped at iWorld recently, 2014. And it's something called Ring, a wearable input device for iOS. Now, this is specifically a Kickstarter project for an iOS device, but I don't see why it wouldn't work anywhere else. It reminds me slightly of the Leap, but imagine you were wearing a wedding ring or just a ring on your finger. There are no holes in it, nothing. It's just a ring that goes on your finger. All the innards are in it, but it is a sensing device. And rather like Leap, it can literally sense what you're doing. And it probably it doesn't specify here, but I presume it connects by Bluetooth with your iPad or whatever. And it just seems so obvious. I took one look at this and thought, well, it's a nice little thing. Everybody knows what a ring is. It's no new gadget. It's a new gadget in the sense of what it does, but it's just a ring. Buy a ring, put it on your finger, and you've immediately got gesture control with what you're working with. And
I just posted the link to it for anybody in the audience.
Great. Okay. Well, I just saw this and thought, well, here's another gadget. Why have I bought this sleep device when I can have a ring? We never know what's around the corner, and I thought, I thought this one was a particularly good one.
Yes. So I urge you, all of you, do not pay for the implant.
Yeah.
Wait until we get the no contact telepathic wave reader machines, okay? Instead of the ones that have the direct physical connection.
Okay.
They'll be coming soon on the market. You don't want these bolts sticking out of your head. It's embarrassing. Everyone will look at you and
What a nerd.
They probably attract electricity anyway. Okay.
I know, yeah. And they'll be infected, and then you remove them and you'll have scars.
You'll be picking up transmissions from Russia.
I was thinking the other day about bicycle lights that used to be powered by dynamos. Remember those? You sort of pedal.
No.
You pedal on the bicycle, and the wheel goes round. But it's a little gadget on the wheel that connects to the wheel and turns and generates electricity that actually powers the light. So you don't need.
And the lights always flickered.
I have a transistor radio with a crank that does that.
If you stop pedaling. If you stop pedaling, it obviously goes out. But we're now dealing with such micro technology, and we're talking about implants here. Why can't people have inserted in them a little dynamo that takes the power from your bloodstream, because that's always going round, it never stops. and could provide, the minute amount of electrical power to power some of these things. I mean, they're even charging things through wireless electricity these days, which I don't think is a solution to that. But it seems to me, there's just an extraordinary number of different possibilities that are
That's an interesting idea
coming
now.
up there.
Well, they already have watches that are powered by movement.
Mm.
So I could definitely see like pacemakers and stuff that are powered by your body. And in fact, I believe pacemakers are already powered by your body. They draw electricity from your body circuits.
Yeah. It just, when we start talking about the environment and power use and stuff, you're never going to be able to power anything big that way. But we have a hydroelectric system built into our body. All we need is something small enough to tap into it.
Some of us have them built into our mouths. I'm one of them, not you, Mal, not you. I was not talking about you. It was a general comment.
Now, what was that HUD that used to be around? Motor Mouth? HUD in Second Life called Motor Mouth at some point.
Yeah, there was.
I know there's a mouth mouse.
Yeah, all the tricks of the trade there. Okay, well, I think we've exhausted our Oculus Rift and high fidelity too, I guess. I was very impressed with that program before. I mean, we saw more. Very much more of what high fidelity is all about. And I did, that's the only other thing, of course, is that one of high fidelity's investors, apart from Linda Nab and Mitch Kapoor and stuff, is Google themselves. So who knows what? If Google have their glasses and have a competing Oculus, then they're already invested in Second Life, so maybe they'll be the ones to buy it. I think the outtake from all this is the fever that's going around now. There is a chance here that virtual reality and all the things, particularly the sort of immersive creative things that we do with it, but also all other aspects of it, have another chance at prime time. I just hope Linda now don't spoil it by sort of come and have sex with your date here or something, because you don't want to be. It doesn't want to be. It doesn't want to be tagged with. That I'm sure the sex companies will come in quick enough with Oculus Rift, but. You don't want the idea of a 3D virtual reality once again tagged with all the scandalous stuff. There needs to be some publicity for the non-scandalous stuff,
right?
To give it a chance to kind of thrive rather than just get.
And there's plenty of other stuff here. There really is, yeah. And in virtual reality in general, not just Second Life. I mean, you were talking about communities earlier. It's a whole new type of community. Virtual reality, and it will grow the way you were saying, Maria. 5 years from now things will look very different, just as a result of the innovations that come as people use it and think of new ways to use it. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's people should be positive about it.
Yes, I'm not looking forward to the idea of having to relearn a whole new scripting and building and tools and a new language and all this other stuff, because I'm getting old. So I'm really hoping that the Open Sim Second Life survives into this new generation, so there's less stuff for me to learn. So very, very selfish approach there.
That was another takeaway I got from what Philip was talking about. No LSL or anything. It's all powered by JavaScript.
Oh no, I don't know JavaScript.
Yeah, but it's so but I don't really either. But I mean, it's so ubiquitous. Use the dreaded word again.
And LSL and JavaScript are pretty
similar,
pretty related as far as how they're kind of.
I thought LSL was a bastardization of JavaScript.
LSL
it really is. I think that's my understanding too.
LSL is a state-based language. JavaScript is a traditional functional programming language. They've got different architectures, different commands, different everything. Maybe. I don't want to learn JavaScript. I'm currently learning PHP because I'm doing a lot of web stuff with WordPress, and it's written in PHP. So to edit anything, you have to edit in PHP. And I tried looking at Python because Google App Engine uses Python, but now they've just released PHP support. So just by learning PHP, I've got both WordPress and Google App Engine covered. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't want to add JavaScript to the mix. There's only so much time in the day.
Well, maybe you'll dodge that bullet. Maybe
Maybe I will. Yes.
I'm
I
the
can only
same.
hope.
I'm the same. The only things I ever learn like that are when I look at the code and then I try modifying it, and oh, blimey, it works. But learning it is another thing. But I think JavaScript is actually fairly crucial to the HTML5 system. For rendering media and stuff like that outside Flash.
Yes, it is, and
so it's it's very, very commonplace.
Yes.
it is. Yes.
As for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't want to learn it. Leave that
I
to
just
the
wanna learn,
leave that to the script boffins. Plenty of work for them about.
You know how there's some bars at the top of web pages that stay in one place even as the website moves around?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So CNET has one where the bar is lower down, moves up into place, and then sticks there. So it attaches. So it starts out somewhere else and then moves up, changes its shape, and then attaches itself to the top. Very funky. CNET.com.
I have on the it's a really old relic actually on the MBTV live NU site that people may be watching live on. The channel guide on the right is actually done that way, where if you mouse over a link, you get a pop-up that describes the link, for example, and it keeps moving depending on where you move your mouse. But it's not meant to be invasive; it's just meant to give you a bit more information.
So I wanted to steal that, and I looked up how they did it, and I could figure out where to even start. It was such a maze of jQuery and JavaScript and everything. I'm like, I can't tweak it to be my own. I don't even know where to start tweaking. It's so hard. I'm so old.
I know, it's probably what is modern. What you see is what you get. Web authoring tools where they give you a template which is highly complex. You just key it in.
That's
and
what
they
I did. I switched to a template that had that built in. I'm like, okay, this is good enough. I'll just stick with this one.
That's actually if you were using Adobe, you would find that stuff is all set up WYSIWYG, and those who are hardcore coded by hand people would sneer that it was sloppy code, it was bloatware, etc. But it gets you past all that.
Maybe that's
look
why
under the
I
hood
couldn't.
stuff and go cross-eyed.
Maybe that's why I couldn't read it, because it wasn't human written.
It's also it'll be buried either in headers or footers. As far as how it appears in the HTML.
No, it was buried. No, that part's okay, but the fact that it was uncommented, unblocked, and totally unreadable. That I think you're right. I think it was generated by some application they used to create the template. And that's why I couldn't figure out, because it doesn't make any sense from a human perspective, because it was never meant to.
Yeah, well, and the other thing that sometimes happens is that the code that's in the actual page is referring to a library or code that's stored elsewhere in the website, and is not actually won't show on the page unless you're using something like Firebug or something like that.
Which I do. I actually I was using that to get the code files. Yeah. And it was incomprehensible. It was definitely. I think you're right. I think it was machine generated by somebody using those tools, and I just don't have those tools, and I don't even know what tools to start with, and it's not that big a deal. I don't care if my nav bar moves or not.
You're not going back to school? You're not going to take another class? You're going to pass on that?
I'll just hire somebody to do it for me.
Seriously?
If I really want it done. Yes.
If you can't find a template that does what you want.
No. Yeah, and
I always figure there's always, if I look around, I'm bound to find a template that's close enough to what I want that I can figure out what to grab.
Yeah, exactly. Now I do learn LSL because I write about it, and it's very interesting to be able to do things in the virtual world. So that for me is key. Like, for example, back in the .com days, I learned HTML because I was, this is an important thing. You need to know at least the basics of how it works. But I'm not going to go back and learn JavaScript and C++ and everything else. No.
It was also much simpler then. You opened up an early HTML file and just sort of, what's all that about? And then once you figured it out, it was, that's easy. But I used to
cascading style sheets, and it went downhill from there fast.
I must admit too, back when I did do some of that stuff, and I was never any expert at it, but so I would actually use some of those template-driven things, and then I had some software that would then scan the code and optimize it. And the file sizes would shrink tremendously when you actually got proper software to optimize the code, because some of those templates in the WYSIWYG software was just bloatware. It may have made life easy for some people, but what was going on behind it was slowing down pages and really being quite a nuisance.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm just looking at a few of the other linky departments here, which is more the Second Life department. University of Western Australia in Second Life. The March LEA 6 Full Sim Gallery is Cinema 2 by Mary Wickentower, who's wonderful. You can find that at LEA 6, the sim. Just getting that in. I was intrigued by this one from Second Life Art Parks, something called Role Plea, as in pleading for mercy, not role play. I'm not quite sure on this one. I think it's actually a sim called Role Play. Very beautiful looking indeed. You can find, if you go to slartparks.blogspot.com, you can see some nice photos of that. Ziki Questy has an interesting blog, and Tara, I know, will remember this. Do you remember Flower Ball?
Oh, yes. I took pictures of that.
Yes.
I think I did a little machinima on that.
You did indeed. Well, it was around in Second Life in 2007. And it was the wow thing of the time, and it was an installation created by Douglas Story and Desmond Enfield and Aldo Manutio Abruzzo, who did the soundscape. It's weird. I thought that was Dizzy Banjo, but never mind. Anyway, it is now come back. It has been sort of bought for display, as it were, by the Princeton University Sims. And you can see it once again. It doesn't say whether it's been modernized or anything, but it's good old Flower Ball. It's quite an experience if none of you have ever seen it. So if you want more information on that, go to Ziki Questy. That's ZIKIQUESTI.blogspot.com. And finally, an exhibition related to the Freedom Project is now open, and I'm just checking out this. I think this, typical, they don't tell you very obviously. They go on all about it. Very good. Yes, it is. I thought it was at the UWA. So if you want to see this exhibition, you want a sim called UWA. Just a standard UWA sim. Coordinates 40107-248, and this project has actually been going on for quite a while, but this is just the complete exhibition, which is now open. And I think that covers the main stuff. I do this show, and I get to the end of the show, and I'm busy scraping around all the links, and there are just far too many of them, especially the Inworld ones. So. Just give me a quick rundown here to check that there's nothing absolutely vital that you need to know. And no, I think not. Anybody here got any recommendations for the week? Or,
Liquid Mesh.
Yes, Liquid Mesh.
Liquid Mesh works not so well in the older viewers, but in the newer ones, it looks pretty darn good. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Kokua viewer had an update this week as well. By the way. For those who used that. It was originally sort of being intended, I think, to be a successor to Imprudence and primarily an open sim viewer. But like so many, Firestorm, etc., they seem to be heavily focused on Second Life too. And I guess it's, if you're going to bring out a viewer, you think, does it work with Second Life first, and then does it work with OpenSim second? Which in a way is a shame.
The big dogs, yeah.
Yeah, I in some ways I prefer to see a viewer that is focused the other way around, sort of get it working with OpenSim and then see what it can do with Second Life. But yeah, that's what. Okay, yeah, there are just too many destinations and things for me to go on. Inara Pay's blog, by the way, has today, I guess it was, SL Project updates, basically updates to all the news on third-party viewers, so you can check that out as well.
Yeah, and it's not a particularly newsworthy week. As far as that, I mean, it's off in the bug fix realm to a large extent. Nothing major really has come out.
Right. Oh well, there is no news this week, is there? Except
that's why there was no Eat Your Vegetables segment.
I actually, when weeks like this, I kind of wonder if somehow I've missed a load of news because the prime headline news that goes viral has just swamped every feed I've got. And it's certainly one of those weeks when really nobody's been talking much about anything other than Facebook and Oculus. But the stuff does go on as usual. And as I mentioned, next week we'll be having a little special preview of it'll be a regular show next week. Hopefully Maria will be back with us. We'll have Felon and Letty and Caliboa too. So we'll be looking at virtual world's best practices in education, which will be happening a very short number of days after next week's show. So we'll be well focused on that, and we'll be treated to a whole lot of keynotes there. Maria is giving a keynote along with Justin, both over on OS Grid, and we have Philip Rosedale opening in Second Life. We got Ebby Linden, our new Second Life CEO, on Saturday I think it is, and a whole load of other people too. And my mind, I thought I memorized them all, and now my mind has gone blank.
There are 7 of them, right? 7 keynote speakers?
Yeah, there are 7 in all. So Maria, Justin, Ebby, Philip, and yes, I do know I know I know all of them except one, and the one I thought I memorized. But anyway, we'll bring you all the news on that next week, along with any other breaking news that has happened, and all things worthy of discussion. So I'm just going to round off by going to everybody in turn. Anything other than what we've mentioned, exciting you've been doing in the last week, or that might be coming up. So Petlove.
Well, the Blackened Mirror has not gone away. It's just quieted down a little bit. Currently, the outtake roll is in production, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, great fun.
That'll be fun. And that's about it for me. We did a fashion show with Trempe, organized a beautiful fashion show last night, and live streaming Machinima is alive and well in the virtual world. That's all I can say.
Indeed. And you were testing some wonderful new audio tools, which were working out a treat.
Yes, we discovered virtual audio cable program that does seem to work quite well as far as combining different sound sources to be directed to whatever output you want it to be. In our case, it was Skype. So yeah, that works really well. I'll recommend that to anybody. I have a good friend who turned us on to it. You'll be hearing more about him in the future.
Yeah, I must say I was watching that last night, as one does. I can't say I'm generally intrigued by fashion shows. I've done quite a few of them actually with, helping do some first TV out. But, I was just watching it on the screen, and the sound quality was amazing. And it was a real treat to hear some fashionistas who knew what they were doing. They were talking to camera.
Intelligent conversation.
There was no dead air. They were talking to television and, ad-libbing perfectly well. There's no silence, and they were on the spot all the way through.
I thought the set was very innovative too. It was really nice to get away from the giant runways and the massive setups that used to happen more frequently. I think we're going to be seeing more versatile sets now in the future.
It had a very odd feel because it was sort of rather split between two rooms.
It was in two rooms, yes.
Your camera would sort of pan out of one room and into the other room.
You could follow it down the hall, yeah.
Circle one room and then go down the hall again into the other room and circle. And it's jumping between the two rooms all in one shot. And I found that intriguing. It's sort of, it's just like, continuous motion.
We have another very unique fashion show coming up in about 2 weeks, on the 12th, on the last day of VW BPE, and they too have an innovative set. You'll see notices for it. That will be worth a look-see too. I've been there and it's real neat. I don't want to spill any beans, but it's very, very nice. It's beautiful with a lot of world-class photographers work present, like truly world-class. In fact, one of the people involved, and I wish I could remember her name, had a photo out of Second Life accepted by a high up, whatever the word would be, haute couture Italian fashion magazine, and her work has been included with world-renowned photographers, which is exciting. It's just another kudo for virtual worlds.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's all about the image, and
well, it's beauty.
What we can, if we can create it, and it's good, and well deserved, I imagine. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing how much Second Life and virtual worlds in general, but probably Second Life are having influence on fashion now. And I mean real world fashion, prototyping cost. If you want to test out a costume, best place to do it is
it's a large industry here, and it's a very dynamic, living, breathing creature. It really is. Yeah.
I can tell from my feeds, because I have everything split up into sections, and one section is lifestyle, and it just goes on and on. There must be about 500 fashion posts, blog posts a day, just in Second Life, which is far out. Where it swamps the music, it swamps all the rest of it.
Wow.
So it's big thing, really. Okay, Maria. Anything else we haven't covered? Anything exciting you've done in the last week, or going to be doing in the next? Or
well, I'm doing a website redesign, and in anticipation of putting out a newsletter and of doing the Freeland and OpenSim special report. I'm also putting together a news report tomorrow about all the stuff happening this coming month on the OpenSim grid. So if you have announcements for me and you're listening right now, send them in.
Quick,
yes.
Ready for tomorrow, yeah.
And I have some new numbers about Kitely Market sales. So
yes.
check in on that. I'm going to I have the numbers right now, but I'm going to be putting them into a story tomorrow.
Right.
So with some additional details. So, stop by hypergridbusiness.com and find out.
How many weeks are we up to on that now? Is it a month yet, or is it just a couple of weeks since Kitely's marketplace went?
Well, they first internally launched it last September.
Yeah, since they went.
The hypergrid went live about a month, 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
And they were in beta for a week or two before that. Yeah.
So basically, you got the stats for about a month. So yeah, that'd be interesting. Yes. I'm talking of stats actually. I didn't mention it. I can't see any links on my list, but I know K0 has put up a couple of his. He's certainly got a new presentation slideshow on facts and figures in virtual worlds on SlideShare. And I guess if you go to k0.com, he's probably embedded them on his blog too. I know there was one this week, and I think there was one the week before. The wonderful graphs he does. He doesn't list the facts and figures. He would just get these wonderful pie charts and graphs and things. So if you want your background facts and figures, that's a great place to go as well. Right, Tara. Anything else before we?
Just one little item. You mentioned an item that came out of the Macworld iWorld event, which was this week. And here's another one that was displayed as a beta product there. And this is especially for those of you who have an iPhone or an iPad that you are using heavily for storing pictures on. And you are, for example, a collector of kitty pictures, of taking cute pictures of your kitties along with all sorts of other things, and then you can't find what you're looking for. And there's a new app that called Recome, Recome, for the iPhone. Will help you easily find any image you're looking for on your iPhone. Apparently, they've added some beefed up visual recognition technology, so it will, rather than just relying on your own categorization, it uses its database of thousands of categories to intelligently do that classification for you. And apparently, it will easily recognize kitty pictures as distinct from doggy pictures and from froggy pictures. I think was the third one that they mentioned that came up under animals, and there's probably others too. But what I want to know is, will it also recognize kitty cats? So
yes, I actually think yes, I did read about those somewhere, and in fact, on my other reading list I have here, there was another interesting. If you are on the iPad, there's another interesting app this week called Cloud Goo. Cloud and then GOO in capital letters.
Cloud Goo.
And basically, if you use things like Dropbox, one Microsoft Drive, whatever they call it, OneDrive, that's it. Box, Dropbox, a number of other cloud storage things, Google Drive and stuff like that. This actually allows you to manage them all in one place, but more interestingly, it allows you to sort of copy and paste between them. So if you've got limited storage space with Microsoft and Dropbox and Box and Google and everything like that, you can sort of, avoid duplicates and sort of shuffle them around to whichever cloud box you want to keep them in, which I thought was potentially quite useful. So I downloaded that. If you use clouds, which may or may not be wise. Anyway, okay, I think we've pretty much covered everything for this week, even if it all was Oculus Rift and Facebook. We'll be back next week. Looking forward to Virtual World's best practices. I hope you'll be able to join us again, Maria. I'll remind you in the week. I keep thinking you're a regular now, you see.
Oh, that's fine. I just need to know so I can put on my calendar.
Right, every week from now on.
Every week from now on.
Same
really?
time,
okay.
same time, same place. Yeah.
I will add you to my calendar now as a standing appointment.
All right. Welcome.
Yay. That's a real boost. We'll now think of it as three of us.
And
we'll have it all covered.
And I might even go to a makeup salon and get my hair and face done. Do they have those in Second Life?
I believe they do.
At the last trailer park I was at, they did.
At the last trailer park. I like that one. We don't actually have a green room here. Maybe, but we'll find another sponsor to sponsor the makeup room behind the scenes, and so it'll get made over before we come on stage. Wishful thinking that one is. Right.
Well, you can also visit Fab Free and find the stuff you can do for cheap.
Yeah, Fab Free's great.
It actually looks some of it looks really good. I mean, there's some amazing stuff you can pick up for nothing if you follow the. There's a couple of blogs that follow the available.
You know what else? You know what else, Tara? Which people don't realize, but the hunts, the treasure hunting in Second Life. You can get everything.
Well, that's and the two free blogs also pick up on those, and in fact, a lot of the stuff they feature are items that are in hunt prizes and also giveaways to people who are
a month or younger,
various groups.
Okay.
For those of you that watched last week's show, Metaverse Week in Review, we had no less than 3 happy huntings.
Wow.
We haven't got one this week, but hunts are a brilliant way to go shopping.
Absolutely.
They're fun. They're fun to work at.
And it's all new stuff. It's modern stuff. They're not giving away trash. You get new skins, new mesh, new homes, new anything you want. And a lot of people who don't participate in hunts will have something set up for new people. as well. And that's something that needs to be highlighted more for if you want to talk about keeping people interested in Second Life and making new users' experiences pleasant, and exciting. That's something they could all enjoy.
I actually hop into a lot of shops, and the first thing you see is sort of they can monitor you basically, and if you're less than 30 days old, they'll give you a range of things you can, quality things you can have for free just to get you started. So it doesn't work after 30 days, but never mind.
Well, if anyone's looking for a business idea, I would love to be able to go in someplace with a copy of a real world photograph and give you money to make my avatar look nice. So I don't have to shop, because I hate shopping.
Let's talk later. I can do that. No problemo.
There you go.
There was a company. It was back in the days of Metanomics, if I remember, and or maybe even earlier, Meta First, I actually missed it, but it was actually a sort of demo, and they actually allowed you to send photographs, and they made you up a free photographic skin, a bit like you were talking about earlier, Maria.
Yeah, they did. And, I remember trying them out. Yeah.
You've got that already.
It was actually a business orientated thing, because they thought, if they can set up a paying service where you pay them to sort of create an avatar that looks like your real self, and also, dress you in suitable business costumes and stuff like that. That's if you don't want to look ridiculous like me, So, that's good stuff. But no, good idea, Maria. I mean, I'm sure, I think Petlove might be able to help you out there, actually. But, it is a good idea, actually. A package deal, so to speak. Right. Okay, in case you don't want a Linden costume.
Yeah. But the thing for me though is I want to be able to look the same everywhere.
Yeah.
So I want to have the rights to the end result. So I would rather pay extra.
Have it made for you
custom.
With full perms. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
brilliant.
That's based. That then I can take with me to other grids, so I look the same everywhere I go.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. That's why I don't buy skins. Because I can't take them anywhere, and the freebie skins, like Linda Kelly's that are open source, that are public domain. Well, everyone's wearing them because there's like 10 of them, and everyone has them. I don't want to look like everybody else.
And that's it's the ideal thing to do on OpenSim, because if it's done, if you own it and it's done properly, you can then import it into Second Life. So you can not only use it on the hypergrid, but you can import it as a separate thing into Second Life, so it look the same. Our old friend Fleep 2, who of course is the founder of Chillboat here, where we're broadcasting from, and was instrumental in WPP in the early days. She is quite remarkable, because I don't think. Well, basically, her avatar looks the same wherever I meet her, whatever grid she's on, or including Second Life and on Fleet Grid, obviously, and OpenSim. She always seems to manage to look the same. It's not a photorealistic likeness or anything. It's just the moment I see the avatar, wherever I am, I think, hey, that's Fleet. She's just got the look right everywhere. I think she must have recorded everything she did to get the look and replicated it everywhere she goes.
Yeah, it's not hard to just copy down the numbers out of appearance and bring the shape with you that way. I mean, it's kind of, it takes a minute, but it's not an impossible thing to do. But then you have to find, like Maria was saying, you almost need a style card, and you need to have your own things that you can bring with you. I think that's a brilliant idea, because they're not the same from grid to grid. They really aren't. So just the shape.
You need a cascading style sheet that works in virtual environments.
Written in PHP, JavaScript, LSL, not.
Exactly. I was thinking about it earlier, but Australia's in an odd time zone with us. But I really want to get Bruce Joy from Vast Park on the show at some point, because I've got to try. I'm really dying to know what he thinks of the Facebook Oculus thing. But of course he's also responsible for, it hasn't really taken off, I don't think, the Open Avatar project, where there was the idea being that there would be a custom server that would deploy avatar looks and inventory and stuff, independent of where you were on the web, let alone in virtual worlds. So we might, I'll try and follow up on that again. About time we had another chat with him. Okay. I'm thinking rather than anything else, aren't I? So it's about time to wrap. It really is time to wrap. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I'd like to thank Maria.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And you'll be back next week and the week after. And yay,
I will. It's on my calendar.
That is good news indeed. And as always, thanks to Petlove.
Oh, you're ever so welcome. I'm happy to be here. I hope my voice is on. Tell me my voice is on. Good.
Your voice is on. I can hear it fine. Hopefully it's on the recording too.
Yeah, it should be.
And of course, thanks always to Tara as well. Thank you, Tara.
Indeed, and it's just a good time to wrap because my avatar Inworld has crashed.
Oh, brilliant!
Thanks for the warning.
I'm still
I
visible,
think our lips
but my lips
crashed,
I can pretty much guarantee are not moving, and there's no way for me to make the move without disappearing. So
you are off camera.
I know that feeling. So you're still here. While you're still here, we'll say goodbye.
Yes.
Okay, folks. We've enjoyed being with you, and we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Say goodbye.